The film opens with a blind woman named Sarah who's having a conversation with an unseen entity. This entity has been haunting her for several days, playing music and shadowing her throughout her home. Overwhelmed by the situation, Sarah decides to go to the basement to end her life. At that moment, she senses the presence close by. She reconsiders her decision, but before she can lift the curse, someone snatches the tool from her. A figure in the shadows captures a photo of her as she hangs there. Nearby, a collection of medical instruments rests on a table. Sarah's twin sister, Julia, lives far away. As Sarah hangs lifeless, Julia suddenly collapses. She feels that something is amiss and resolves to check on Sarah. Julia and her husband, Isaac, search for Sarah and discover her deceased in the basement. Both sisters suffer from the same illness that progressively deteriorated their eyesight, ultimately leading to blindness. However, Sarah's vision had worsened prior to this tragic event at home. The police officer proposes labeling it a suicide, suspecting that Sarah fell into despair over her blindness and took her own life. Nevertheless, Julia argues against this theory, asserting that Sarah was awaiting a donor to restore her sight. She is convinced that this is not a suicide but a case of murder. He then tells her about a blind woman named Soledad who used to chat with Sarah. Julia decides to visit Soledad and learns about a place called Ballard Center, which caters to handicapped individuals. Soledad mentions that Sarah had made new friends there. Julia then goes to the center. Upon her arrival, she overhears a group of blind women gossiping about Sarah. They talk about Sarah having a boyfriend with whom she went to a hotel in Bella Vista. The women notice Julia and confront her when she introduces herself. They inquire about the man accompanying her. Julia is taken aback since she came alone, but the women sense someone standing right behind her. Julia turns to see someone exiting. She pursues the figure and finds herself in a small, dark room. The person is right in front of her, but she can't see him because of the darkness. He flashes a camera, which distracts Julia, allowing him to escape. Her vision begins to blur. At this point, Julia's paranoia intensifies. She insists to Isaac that she constantly feels someone following her, even when nobody is visible. Julia's determination to prove her sister was murdered is met with frustration from Isaac, who attributes her suspicions to stress from her worsening eyesight. Isaac urges her to return home, fearing that any additional stress could lead to Julia losing her sight, but she persuades him to take a holiday in Bella Vista. In truth, she aims to uncover the identity of Sarah's boyfriend, whom the blind woman mentioned. Upon arriving in Bella Vista, she selects the hotel where Sarah stayed with her boyfriend. However, she finds no record of him at the hotel. Later, during lunch, a waitress informs her that her twin, Sarah, has already undergone her eye operation, leaving Julia puzzled as to why Sarah would kill herself if she had the surgery. Isaac then discloses that Sarah's doctor informed him that the eye operation was unsuccessful. He believes this is the reason behind Sarah's decision. As Julia prepares to leave the hotel, a janitor named Crespulo informs her that he discovered something in Sarah's hotel room. He leads her to the room and hands her a key that belonged to Sarah. Crespulo warns her to be cautious of the man lurking in the shadows. At that moment, Julia feels someone behind her. The figure flees before she can catch a glimpse of it. Julia and Isaac then decide to retrieve surveillance footage to identify the person who was with Sarah. Isaac enters to collect the footage, but fails to return. When Julia goes in to investigate, she finds Isaac missing and all the footage has vanished. She reports Isaac's disappearance to the police and mentions the invisible man. At that moment, we see Crespulo relaxing in a bathtub. Suddenly, someone cuts off the light bulb above him, electrocuting him to death. The police and Julia arrive searching for Crespulo and discover his lifeless body. Julia becomes convinced that the invisible man is responsible for Crespulo's death and has kidnapped her husband. Anxious about Isaac, she experiences a seizure that further deteriorates her vision. She visits her doctor, who informs her that she has less than a month before she becomes completely blind. He schedules her for an eye transplant surgery. Around this time, Julia becomes more isolated. Friends, neighbors, and even the authorities begin doubting her. Julia begins connecting Sarah's mysterious death to a pattern of manipulation and stalking. Later that day, she returns to Soledad's house. Soledad had a husband and a son named Angel. Her husband abandoned her, and Angel took care of her for 10 years before mysteriously leaving one day. Soon after, the police trace Isaac's last known location to a motel. They also discover his wedding ring left behind in the room. As the inspector and Julia converse in motel, another officer arrives to inform them that someone is at Julia's home. They both head back. The inspector checks a room, while Julia hears a noise coming from a basement. She descends to investigate, but due to her poor eyesight and the darkness of the room, she can't see anything. As she feels around, she unexpectedly touches a man. Startled, she begins to scream for help. The inspector rushes down to reassure her. Suddenly, the lights flicker back on, revealing Isaac's body hanging from the ceiling. However, even with the lights on, Julia remains unable to see. She has gone completely blind. The next day at the hospital, the inspector informs Julia about Isaac's suicide note. He had been having an affair with Sarah for 6 months before her death. He ended his life because he could no longer deceive Julia. A few days later, Julia undergoes surgery. She will have to wear a bandage over her eyes for a week. Only after that will it be determined if the surgery was successful. During this period, she will be under supervision at her twin's house. The hospital assigns Julia a caretaker named Ivan to assist her at home. He provides her with a device to wear around her neck, allowing her to call him whenever she needs help. That night, Julia experiences a nightmare involving Isaac and Sarah attempting to remove her bandage. She wakes up in fear and hears footsteps outside. Using the device, she calls Ivan, who instructs her to leave the house. As she escapes, someone snatches the key that Crespulo had given her. The next day, the police arrive but find no signs of a break-in. For the following days, Ivan tenderly changes Julia's bandage, cooks for her, and enjoys music with her, yet we never see his face. On the third day, Julia invites him for drinks, and after discussing Isaac, she kisses him. That night, Julia is jolted awake by another nightmare. As she reaches for her wedding ring on the bedside table, she notices a set of hospital tools reminiscent of those from the night Sarah died. Suddenly, someone attempts to inject her with a drug from behind, startling her awake. Terrified, she flees to her neighbor Blasco's home, where his daughter Leah is also present. Blasco lets her in, but begins to harass Julia. To her shock, she discovers Sarah's key in his house and takes it with her. She escapes and hides in a corner, calling Ivan for assistance. Eventually, Ivan arrives to rescue her, but she is too frightened to return home, so he takes her to his place. There, she reveals that she found Sarah's key at Mr. Blasco's house and suspects him of being the Invisible Man. Ivan steps out for a while and Leah approaches Julia, having followed them and sneaked in through the windows. Leah confesses to Julia that she was the one who took the key from her house and claims to know who killed Sarah and Isaac. It is the Invisible Man, Ivan himself. Leah discloses that she used to be close to Sarah and knows a great deal about the Invisible Man. Julia is skeptical, but Leah asserts that the key opens one of the locks in Ivan's house. Ivan has been drugging Julia to induce blindness, just as he did with Sarah. Leah instructs Julia to go to the bathroom and remain there until she can find a way to escape. When Ivan returns, she requests him to take her to the bathroom. She then removes her bandage for days ahead of schedule. Fortunately, the operation is a success, and she is thrilled to have regained her sight. She quickly steps outside and enters one of the robes. To her shock, she sees numerous pictures of Sarah and herself adorning the wall. Julia exits the room in search of Leah, but discovers her body stabbed against a wall. Ivan has killed her. Terrified, she collapses in a corner and begins to cry. Just then, Ivan enters the room, and for the first time, we see his face smeared with Lee's blood. But instead of getting scared, she tries to pretend that she is still blind. Ivan scares her with a knife, but it has no effect on her. He then gives her spiked coffee and waits for her to drink it. She keeps on making excuses, and the moment he leaves, she exchanges the cup. She then drinks the other coffee in front of him, but he still isn't convinced yet. He then takes her to the basement and asks her to open a freezer. She opens it and, to her horror, finds a real Ivan's body stuffed inside. She still doesn't give him any reaction, but she can't hold it in any longer and tries to run away. He immediately catches her and says that he has caught on to her lies. He says that she can't get away from him and ties her eyes. He then opens it and her vision has gone blurry. He says that he will make her blind again so their relationship can return to the way it was. She is in a car, but the moment he gets out, she drives it away. Stumbling, she somehow manages to reach Soledad's home and tells her everything and asks her for help. But Ivan arrives before she can do so. He refers to Soledad as Mom, revealing that he's actually her son, Angel. Julia begs Soledad to contact the police, but Angel persuades her that he is not a murderer. Then, Soledad strikes Julia on the head with a phone. Angel realizes that his mother can see him. Soledad reminds him that he will be nothing without her. This frustrates Angel, leading him to choke her. He wants her to revert to being blind once more, and he jabs her eyes with a needle. When Julia awakens, she finds herself in the basement of Sarah's home. Angel is sitting right in front of her. He has gathered all her belongings and intends to take her away to live with him. He forces her to take her own life. She tries to do so, having no other choice, but he saves her immediately and says that they are meant to be together, and the only way to do that is for her to be dependent on him. As he leans in to kiss her, Julia grabs a knife and stabs him in the legs. She swiftly escapes the basement and locks him inside. However, she realizes she cannot exit the house. She calls the police. Just as Angel breaks through the door, Julia turns off all the lights in the house. It becomes completely dark. Angel uses the flash from his camera to search for Julia and eventually locates her. As he attempts to stab her, the police arrive. Yet, they too are unable to see anyone in the dark room. Julia takes one of the flashlights from the officers and shines it on Angel, revealing his shadow in the corner. Unable to bear the gaze of so many people, Angel slits his throat, ending his own life. Fast forward a few weeks, and Julia is in the hospital. She discovers that the damage to her new eyes is permanent, as her fake caretaker had been injecting her repeatedly. In her final moments of sight, Julia bids farewell to Isaac's lifeless body. It is disclosed that he was the one who donated his eyes to her. The film concludes with a close-up of Julia's eye. You were watching a recap of the 2010 movie Julia's Eyes. Hit the like button if you have enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and get notified about our next video. Till then, you may also like this.